In a quiet village in Argentina, researchers have observed an anomaly that defies natural laws. Everything in the town ages faster than normal. Wooden buildings rot at double the expected rate, crops grow and wither twice as fast, and even household objects seem to degrade unnaturally quickly. Locals who leave the town for a few years return to find their homes crumbling while nearby villages remain unchanged. Scientists have tested the soil, air, and climate, yet nothing explains why everything decays at an accelerated pace. Some researchers have speculated that the town may be experiencing a localized shift in time, moving slightly faster than the surrounding world. In a private collection in Italy, there is an oil painting from the 1600s that has left art historians mystified. Unlike other paintings that degrade over time, this one has been observed to completely fade into a blank canvas only to reappear years later. The painting depicts a woman in an elaborate dress staring directly at the viewer. Throughout history, documented cases reveal that it has vanished 3 times, with the longest disappearance lasting over 70 years. When it returns, it is completely intact, as if no time had passed. Attempts to study the pigments have yielded no explanation, as the painting does not react to heat, humidity, or light in ways that could account for its strange behavior. Some believe it is a complex artistic illusion, while others argue that it may be reacting to something beyond human understanding. In the vast desert of Mongolia, explorers discovered an ancient stone tower standing alone, far from any known ruins or settlements. The tower, appearing to be centuries old, is made from stone not found anywhere in the region. Archaeologists expected to find remnants of a lost civilization nearby, but after extensive searches, they found nothing, just endless sand in all directions. When researchers attempted to dig around the base of the structure, they found that the tower extends deep underground, with no known end. Attempts to scan the underground sections have failed due to unexplained interference with the equipment. Some believe that the tower is merely the top of a much larger buried structure, but without excavation, its true purpose remains unknown. Local legends speak of a pillar to the underworld. In 1780, across parts of North America, a terrifying event occurred that left entire towns in fear. The sky went completely black for 3 days straight. Unlike an eclipse or a severe storm, this darkness was absolute. No stars, no moonlight, and no natural illumination. Farmers had to use lanterns in the middle of the day, and birds reportedly stopped singing, behaving as if permanent night had fallen. Even stranger, the darkness did not clear with sunrise. It remained thick and impenetrable, swallowing even candlelight within homes. Scientists today theorize that it could have been caused by a massive volcanic eruption, but no record of such an event exists during that time. Some have suggested that an unknown astronomical event or a dense atmospheric phenomenon might be responsible, yet no evidence has ever been found. Deep within the forests of Eastern Europe, hikers have reported discovering a peculiar stone staircase standing alone, with no ruins or structures around it. The staircase is old and weathered, its steps leading upward into the open air, with no apparent purpose. Those who stumble upon it often describe feeling an overwhelming compulsion to climb it, even when they know it leads to nothing. Multiple accounts exist of people reaching the final step and suddenly losing consciousness, waking up moments later at the base, with no memory of what happened. A particularly disturbing case occurred in 1998 when a seasoned hiker radioed his group saying he had found something strange and was going to check it out. When the group arrived at his last known location, all they found were his footprints leading up the steps, but no sign of him. To this day, he has never been found. The origins of the staircase remain unknown. No maps or historical records indicate a structure ever existed in that area. Inside an old manor in France, there is a room that has remained sealed for over a century. The few people who have attempted to stay inside for an extended period all report an inexplicable sense of dread and overwhelming discomfort that becomes unbearable after a few hours. The first recorded case dates back to the 1920s when a nobleman attempted to use the room as his private study. Within a few nights, he abandoned it, claiming that he felt as if someone was constantly standing behind him, just out of sight. Later, guests experienced sudden temperature drops, flickering candle flames with no draft, and even soft whispers coming from the walls. One of the most chilling cases occurred in 1954. A researcher decided to spend the night inside to prove there was no mystery. He was found the next morning unconscious on the floor, his hands covering his ears. When he woke up, he refused to speak about what had happened, only saying that The room doesn't want people inside. Despite multiple attempts to renovate or repurpose it, no one has been able to stay inside for more than 6 hours before leaving in distress. In a remote part of Slovenia, there exists a cave system that has baffled geologists for decades. Unlike normal caves that form through slow erosion, this one appears to be expanding deeper into the earth at an unnatural rate. Each time researchers return to map the tunnels, they find new passageways that were not previously recorded. Some speculate that underground water movement is carving new paths. But what makes it unsettling is that some of these newly discovered tunnels contain ancient carvings and tools that predate recorded history. This raises an even bigger question. If the caves are naturally expanding, how did these markings and artifacts end up in tunnels that seemingly did not exist before? The strangest discovery occurred in 2019 when a team of explorers marked a dead end with a painted symbol. When they returned a year later, the dead end was gone, replaced by a passage leading into complete darkness. Astronomers have documented a strange celestial event that has repeated itself for centuries. Every 50 years in a specific sector of the sky, a bright star appears seemingly out of nowhere. It shines for a few nights, almost as if it were a normal star, then vanishes completely, without a trace. Unlike supernovae, which leave behind remnants or collapsing cores, this star simply ceases to exist, as if it was never there to begin with. Ancient astronomers recorded similar sightings, dating back over 1,000 years, and modern researchers have confirmed that the star is not part of any known stellar cycle. In a small European church, a single candle has been burning continuously for more than 300 years. Records from the 1700s describe how the candle was first lit during a religious ceremony, and despite multiple attempts to explain it, the flame has never gone out. Experts have studied the wax, the wick, and the conditions inside the church, but no one has been able to find a natural explanation. Even stranger, when a powerful storm once shattered a window near the candle, it should have been extinguished by the wind, but instead it continued to burn as if nothing had happened. In a monastery hidden deep in the Austrian Alps, there exists a vast library built hundreds of years ago. The strange part? It was supposedly designed to house a single book that no one has ever been able to locate. The monastery records mention a volume of knowledge that must be kept apart, and architectural blueprints confirm that a specific isolated chamber was created to store it. Yet for as long as historians have studied the site, the room has remained empty. No signs of theft, no mention of where the book went, only the lingering knowledge that something was once meant to be there. In an abandoned mining town in the United States, there is a tunnel that should not exist. The passage, carved into the rock, appears to be perfectly structured, as if it was part of an old mining operation. However, official records show no mention of any tunnels being built in that location. Explorers who have ventured inside describe a strange sensation of being watched, though the tunnel appears completely empty. Even more bizarre, those who have tried to map its layout report that the tunnel seems to shift. One visit may reveal a dead end, while another may open up new paths. Some believe it was an unrecorded escape route from an old mining disaster. In a remote region of Scandinavia, there is a dense forest where sound does not behave as it should. Travelers who enter describe an unsettling experience. The deeper they go, the quieter the world becomes, until eventually, all sound disappears completely. Even when people try to speak or clap their hands, no echo, no reverberation, and no noise of any kind is heard. Scientists have studied the area, ruling out any natural causes such as dense vegetation or unusual rock formations. Yet, sound waves seem to be absorbed entirely, as if something is suppressing them. Some who have entered the deepest parts of the forest claim to have felt a presence watching them, though they never saw anyone else inside. In a small museum in Italy, there is a 17th century oil painting that has unsettled visitors for generations. The artwork depicts a group of aristocrats gathered in a lavish ballroom, engaged in conversation. However, multiple guests have claimed that upon closer inspection, there's always one more figure in the painting than before. Museum staff have documented multiple accounts of people describing a different number of individuals in the scene. Sometimes one extra person, sometimes an unfamiliar face, appearing in a corner. Some reports even claim that the expressions of the painted figures change subtly over time. In the mountains of Eastern Europe, there exists a perfectly preserved medieval village that, for reasons unknown, no one has been able to reach. Maps indicate its location, and satellite images confirm the presence of stone houses, a bell tower, and winding streets. But every attempt to physically visit the village has ended in failure. Hikers report that the roads leading to it loop endlessly, always returning them to where they started. Aerial drone footage glitches out the moment the drones get too close. No records mention when the village was last inhabited, and no known roads or bridges lead to it. Some believe it is an illusion caused by unusual atmospheric conditions. In a quiet countryside town in England, there is an old stone bridge that has stood for centuries. At night, travelers who pass over it claim to hear faint whispers coming from the stones beneath their feet. The voices are never clear enough to understand, but many describe them as hushed conversations, as if multiple people are speaking at once. Some have reported hearing their own names being called, only to turn around and find no one there. The bridge has been examined multiple times, and no hidden tunnels, crevices, or air pockets have been found that could account for the noises. Some believe the sounds are caused by a natural acoustic effect, while others think the bridge is holding on to the voices of those who once crossed it long ago. In a small village in northern Italy, residents have reported an unsettling phenomenon: shadows that move on their own, even when no one is there to cast them. These dark figures have been seen sliding across walls, stretching over sidewalks, and appearing in the reflections of windows. Yet, when people turn to look, nothing is there. At first, many dismissed it as an optical illusion, but over the years, the reports became more frequent. Visitors who have tried to capture the shadows on film have reported that their footage becomes corrupted, with static or black frames appearing exactly at the moment the shadows should be visible. Some believe the phenomenon is caused by an unexplained atmospheric effect, while others fear that whatever's casting these shadows is not meant to be seen. In a private library in Spain, a centuries-old manuscript has puzzled scholars for decades. Unlike ordinary books, this one appears to change its text over time. Researchers who have studied the book claim that passages they recorded years ago are now completely different, as if someone had rewritten them. But there is no sign of human tampering, no ink smudges, no page replacements, and no visible alterations. Some pages contain words and symbols that do not match any known language, while others describe events that had not yet happened, but later came true. Even more unsettling, attempts to photograph the book's pages have proven unsuccessful. While the images appear normal at first, within a few days the text in the photographs fades, leaving only blank pages. Deep in the mountains of Nepal, there is a remote village where time itself seems to behave strangely. Visitors who enter report that their watches and electronic clocks mysteriously stop working the moment they arrive. Mechanical wristwatches freeze at random times, only to start working again once they leave the area. Digital clocks fail to display accurate time, sometimes resetting themselves without explanation. Scientists who have studied the village found no obvious cause. There are no strong magnetic fields, no unusual geological formations, and no detectable interference that could explain the phenomenon. Locals say that time has always been different in their village, though no one knows why. Some believe it is a natural anomaly, while others think the village is caught in a place where time doesn't flow the same way it does in the rest of the world. In northern Canada, there is a river that behaves unlike any other in the world. Once a year, on the same exact date, the water begins to flow backward for several hours before returning to its normal course. The event has been observed by locals for generations, yet scientists have never been able to fully explain it. Hydrologists have studied the area extensively, yet no geological conditions, underground currents, or gravitational shifts can account for the sudden reversal. Some have theorized that the river might be connected to an unseen underground reservoir that causes a temporary backflow, but no evidence has ever supported this. Even stranger, historical records suggest that this phenomenon only began occurring in the 1800s, meaning something must have changed within the river's structure, or perhaps something unknown started interfering with it. In an old railway station in England, there is a large antique clock that has been keeping time for over a century. Yet every night at exactly 12 a.m., the second hand jumps forward by 1 second. Clockmakers have examined the mechanism repeatedly, yet no internal fault has ever been found. Even stranger, when the original clock was removed in 1983 for repairs, a brand new clock was installed in its place, and it began skipping the same second at midnight as well. Scientists have proposed theories, ranging from electrical interference to subtle mechanical wear, but none have fully explained why the phenomenon only happens in this location. Some believe that the missing second is marking an event that happened long ago, an event so deeply connected to the station that it continues to be measured in time itself. In a rural town in New Zealand, there is an abandoned house that has not been occupied for over 50 years. The windows are boarded up, the walls are crumbling, and there is no electricity, running water, or official records of any living owner. Yet, once a month, new mail appears in its rusted mailbox. Some of the letters are blank, containing only folded pieces of paper. Others are filled with seemingly random numbers and symbols, written in different handwriting styles. A postal worker once noticed an envelope with a return address. But when they tried to locate it, they found that the address led to an empty lot where no house had ever existed. Despite efforts to trace the sender, the mail continues to arrive, even though no one has lived in the house for half a century. In a small Austrian village, an old grand piano sits abandoned in an unused concert hall. The instrument has been untouched for decades, completely out of tune and covered in dust. Yet whenever a storm rolls through the valley, villagers claim to hear soft, melancholic melodies coming from the building. One of the strangest reports came in 2018, when a group of visitors heard the piano playing as rain poured outside. When they entered the hall, they found the room completely empty, but the piano lid was open, and the strings were still gently vibrating. A local musicologist investigated the phenomenon, noting that the keys showed no recent movement, yet sound tests confirmed that the strings had been recently disturbed. Some speculate that shifting air pressure causes the effect, while others believe that someone or something still plays the piano when the storms arrive. Deep in Scandinavia, there is a dense ancient forest where every attempt to map its interior has mysteriously failed. Satellite images taken at different times show inconsistent results, sometimes displaying thick tree cover, other times showing unexplained clearings that do not exist in real life. GPS systems malfunction within minutes, causing hikers' locations to jump randomly on the map or show them in multiple places at once. Even experienced cartographers have reported returning from the forest with different sketches of the landscape, despite following the exact same path multiple times. One of the most bizarre cases occurred in 2016, when a team of researchers used drone technology to scan the area. Strangely, the footage contained missing frames, as if parts of the forest had temporarily disappeared. Some believe that the forest sits on a naturally occurring magnetic anomaly, while others suggest that it may be a location where reality itself is unstable. In 1925, the SS Cotopaxi, a cargo ship sailing from Charleston, South Carolina to Cuba, disappeared without a trace in the Bermuda Triangle. The ship's final distress call reported bad weather, but after that it vanished from all records. No wreckage was ever found, and it was assumed lost at sea. Then, in 2015, 90 years later, the Cuban Coast Guard spotted a rusted, abandoned ship drifting toward their shores. When they investigated, they discovered it was the SS Cotopaxi, completely intact but with no crew aboard. Inside, they found personal belongings, food trays still in place, and logbooks that stopped on the exact day the ship disappeared. It was as if the crew had simply vanished into thin air. In 1880, a farmer named Orion Williamson was sitting on his porch in Selma, Alabama, with his wife and child when he got up to walk across a wide-open field toward his barn. His family watched as he stepped onto the grass and then vanished into thin air. A search party scoured the entire field, but there were no footprints beyond his last visible step. No holes, no traps, no sign that anything had disturbed the area. As days passed, witnesses claimed to hear his faint voice calling for help, but they could never locate its source. After weeks of searching, the voices faded, and Williamson was never seen again. Some theorists believe he accidentally stepped into a time slip, while others suggest he was pulled into an unknown dimension, one where he could see us, but we could no longer see him. In 2014, a weather satellite detected an unidentified vessel floating near the Philippines. When authorities arrived, they found a completely abandoned ship drifting aimlessly in the ocean. After identifying the ship, they made a shocking discovery. It was the SS Orang Medan, a Dutch vessel that had been lost in 1947. According to legend, the ship had sent out a distress call decades earlier with the chilling message, "All officers dead, entire crew dead, I am dying." When a rescue team arrived, they found all the crew members frozen in expressions of horror, their bodies showing no signs of injury. Shortly after, the ship reportedly caught fire and sank. In Russia, there is a well that has been drilled so deep into the earth that scientists still don't know how far it goes. Known as the Kola Super Deep Borehole, it is over 40,000 feet, 12 kilometers deep, making it the deepest hole ever made by humans. When scientists lowered microphones inside, they picked up strange, unexplained sounds, a mix of high-pitched tones and distant rumbling, as if something was moving deep below. Despite reaching incredible depths, they were forced to abandon the project because the rock at the bottom was so hot that their equipment melted. Deep in Tanzania, there is a lake so deadly that any creature that falls into it turns into a statue-like form. Known as Lake Natron, the water is extremely alkaline, with a pH level almost as high as ammonia. The temperature can reach up to 140 degrees Fahrenheit, 60 degrees Celsius, making it almost impossible for most life to survive. Birds and animals that accidentally fall into the lake are slowly preserved by the water's chemical makeup, turning into hardened stone-like figures. Their bodies remain eerily lifelike, as if frozen in time. Despite these extreme conditions, certain microorganisms thrive in the lake, feeding on the minerals and thriving in an environment that would be instantaneously fatal to most living beings. In Turkey, there is a place known as Yanartaş, where flames have been burning continuously from the ground for over 2,500 years. Unlike normal fires, these flames are not fueled by wood or coal, they emerge directly from the rocky terrain. The fire has never gone out, even in the harshest storms or extreme weather conditions. Scientists discovered that the flames are caused by naturally occurring methane gas seeping through the Earth's surface, but no one knows why the supply has never depleted after thousands of years. Some ancient cultures believed it was a gateway to the underworld, while others thought it was a divine signal that would never fade. In a scientific research facility in Italy, there is a room where time appears to move at a slightly faster rate than the outside world. Scientists installed atomic clocks inside and outside the chamber, only to discover that the clocks inside the room consistently measured time slightly ahead. The difference is only fractions of a second per year, but the effect is consistent and unexplained. Theories range from small gravitational shifts beneath the Earth to an undiscovered natural phenomenon affecting time perception. Some researchers believe the effect could help us understand how time works on a fundamental level, or even unlock the possibility of time travel. For centuries, sailors reported seeing an island in the South Pacific known as Sandy Island. It was documented on maps as early as 1774, and even modern satellite images once showed its location. Then, in 2012, a group of Australian researchers set out to explore it, only to discover that the island was gone. Despite being mapped for over 2 centuries, there was no land, no remnants, no underwater formation where the island was supposed to be. It was as if it had never existed at all. Some believe it was an early mapping error that was copied for generations. Others suggest something far stranger, that the island was real, but something erased it from history. On a remote island in Nova Scotia, Canada, there is a lighthouse that has been abandoned for over 50 years, but continues to send out signals. Originally manned by 3 lighthouse keepers, the structure was shut down in the 1960s when a more modern system was installed. Yet, for years after, passing ships continued to receive strange, rhythmic signals coming from the lighthouse. When authorities investigated, they found the entire structure empty, the lamp covered in dust, and no working equipment inside. The signals have continued at random intervals ever since, with no official explanation. In a European monastery, there is a 600-year-old astronomical clock that has been tracking planetary movements for centuries. Unlike most clocks, this one doesn't just tell time, it marks specific dates in the future. Monks who have maintained the clock for generations claim that whenever the planets align in a certain pattern, something catastrophic follows. Records show that previous alignments on the clock coincided with major wars, plagues, and natural disasters. The next predicted alignment is approaching in 2043, but no one knows what will happen when the final gear locks into place. Beneath the streets of New York City, there is a subway station that was closed in 1945 and permanently sealed off from the public. Yet multiple reports claim that late at night, trains still pass through its empty tunnels, completely empty with no conductor or passengers. Workers performing maintenance in the area have reported seeing dimly lit subway cars rolling past, sometimes stopping at the abandoned platform before vanishing into the dark. Security footage set up in 2015 captured something strange. A train arriving at the empty station, slowing down, and then disappearing without ever passing through the next checkpoint. In 1971, a small private aircraft carrying a wealthy businessman and his pilot vanished while flying over the Rocky Mountains. No distress signal was sent, and despite months of searching, no wreckage or remains were ever found. Then, 6 months later, the businessman's wife received a phone call in the middle of the night. When she answered, she heard static, followed by her husband's voice whispering her name. Before she could respond, the line went dead. Phone records showed that the call came from an unlisted number, and no trace of it was ever found. In 1815, a prisoner known as Diderizzi was held in a high-security German prison for theft. He was confined to a small stone-walled cell with only one door locked from the outside. One morning, guards arrived to take him for his daily routine, but his cell was empty. The door was still locked, the bars on the window were intact, and there was no sign of escape. The prison was searched thoroughly, but Diderizzi was never found. Even more unsettling, no one had seen or heard anything unusual the night before. Theories ranged from a secret underground passage to a forgotten mechanism in the old prison walls, but no evidence ever explained how he vanished. In the 14th century, a thriving medieval town in France known as Pontpéjac was suddenly abandoned under mysterious circumstances. Unlike other settlements lost to war or disease, Pontpéjac was buried under layers of earth, forgotten for nearly 600 years. For centuries, locals spoke of a vanished village hidden beneath the hills, but no one could prove its existence. Then, in 2005, construction workers digging for a new road made a shocking discovery: perfectly preserved stone buildings, streets, and even household items buried beneath layers of soil. Archaeologists found fully intact medieval homes, fireplaces with pots still hanging above them, and even wooden doors that had been sealed shut for centuries. It was as if the town had been swallowed whole, frozen in time. Theories about why the town was buried range from a devastating landslide to a deliberate attempt to erase it from history. Some believe the town's population was wiped out by the plague, and the survivors covered it in earth to prevent the disease from spreading. Others suggest that a secret event took place, one that someone centuries ago wanted to hide forever.